all, welcome back to another discussion of the Analyst for 16th of September 2023. So here we will be discussing the most important news and articles from today's Indian Express and the Hindu. So looking at the very first, we have to understand what we are going to discuss today. The very first article is about why 2023 is so hot. Then we will try to understand how Election Commission of India actually appoints its election commissioners and what are the issues with respect to a recent bill. Then we will be looking at what is water conservation specifically towards groundwater. Then we shall try to understand what is the PM CARES fund, and finally we will be wrapping up the session with August exports data which has been released as of yesterday. Now before starting the discussion, I want to tell you that the handout for this discussion is available in the description below. So do definitely check it out. Now the very first article is about why 2023 is becoming so hotter, specifically since various environmental organizations and departments all over the world and also in India have warned that 2023 is going to be the hottest year so far, and it is also backed by various evidences. Now here we will be not talking about climate events in a very particular manner, because we will be focusing on a very special event that actually occurred in 2022 January, that occurred as an underwater volcano near the Hunga Tonga Islands. So these islands are in the Pacific Ocean, and why these are important? Because in our GS1 we have some topics known as important geophysical phenomena, wherein we have topics such as earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, earthquakes, right? Then also in GS3 we have the topics of environmental pollution and degradation. So let us understand what is the issue at hand. The context is that the Hunga Tonga, Hapai volcano eruption that took place in 2022, the effects are still being felt today, because it is said that it released a lot of water vapor into the atmosphere, which is causing global warming, and this is one of the reasons why 2023 by far is one of the hottest years so far, right? Now let us understand the background of this. See, let us understand the before and after images of these Hunga Tonga Islands in the Pacific Ocean. If we see, Australia is located here. So off the coast of Australia, here we have the Tonga Islands. So here only, on January 7th, just before the underwater volcano disaster or catastrophe I can say, the islands used to look like this. It was a, very suitable island. But on January 15th, a massive underwater volcano erupted. This means that the volcano that we can see here is not located above the land, it is under the water, right? And we can understand when a volcano can erupt under the water, and where there are water surface above the volcano, we have lots and lots of water which can easily turn into vapor due to outpouring hot elements from the volcano. So this hot or heated atmosphere surrounding the volcano can heat the surface of the water, turning into water vapor. And where will this water vapor go into? The atmosphere, right? Apart from this, the tsunami that was triggered by this volcano, underwater volcano, even reached the coast as far as South America. Even NASA deciphered some of the signals due to this massive eruption. Even places as far as New Zealand's experienced sonic booms. So this volcanic eruption was a very big one, and we can understand that this is one of the reasons why we are experiencing too much heat in 2023. Actually volcano or say volcanic eruptions lead into ejection of sulfur particles, or say we can assume these are some aerosol particles also. Now these aerosol, sulfur, these are global cooling agents. That means the concentration, when the concentration of these substances increase in the atmosphere, it leads to covering the Earth's atmosphere with such particles, and heat is actually blocked, not allowed. But why the Earth is becoming more and more warmer during this thing? Because we have to understand sulfur or say aerosols are not released in an underwater volcano. What is being done is that water vapor is being released, and water vapor is a very high global warming potential component, because water or moisture can hold heat, and whenever the infrared radiations coming out from the Earth's ground surface, it reflects with or say it interacts with the water vapor molecules in the atmosphere, it reflects back heat back into the Earth. That means it is having a global warming potential. That means water vapor can actually lead to more and more global warming, and this is one of the reasons actually. And we have many data to back it also. See, if you can see, the long-term average of 1979 to 2022 average global temperatures, if we can compare this with 2023 temperatures, which is shown in the red line, we can see across all of the years or across all of the months of the year so far, the temperature in June, July recorded the highest. The highest was around 17.2 degrees Celsius, which is the highest ever global average temperature. And let me tell you, 17.2 degrees Celsius can seem to you as quite on the colder side, but when we compare this to the entire world, we can see that this is the gap. That means this gap is being filled by global warming and climate change impacts. And also we can understand from this particular figure that these are the hot spots in our Earth right now. That means places which are marked more in the redder side, right? We can see these are the places which are more on the redder side. And let me tell you, these are not the places only which are near the equator, but also as far as the equator as the Arctic Circle. So we have to understand that hotspots are nowadays becoming very, very common due to global warming. And specifically during this earthquake or volcano, what happened here is that the magma, which was putting much pressure on the Earth's crust here in the region of Hunga Tonga, it put a pressure of heat plume on this surface beneath the Earth, and this becomes so much overheated that all of a sudden there was a big and enormous eruption, right? And with this eruption, we got too much of heat which interacted with the immediate water surface, and this eventually turned into water vapor, which we discussed. And let me tell you, this water vapor is actually equivalent to 60,000, right? 60,000 pools, swimming pools equivalent of water. So if we take 60,000 swimming pools together, we will be getting this amount of water vapor which was released into the atmosphere. And this atmospheric water vapor which was found just after the eruption, is actually spread across all over the world's atmosphere gradually. But scientists actually warned or actually told that there is nothing to worry about this, because eventually the water vapor will eventually dissipate, right? But the immediate effects that we can see in 2023 is very, very clear, right? Because water vapor is a heat trapping greenhouse gas. Then we have also to understand that it is also having some temporary impact on the ozone layer due to various complex chemical interactions that scientists found out in a study that it can also lead to depletion of the ozone. But nevertheless, we have to understand this is a very temporary phenomena, and this is not expected to exacerbate or deteriorate the present impact that we see due to climate change, right? So let us take this with a pinch of salt. Now, can we say that this is one of the reasons why 2023 is the hottest so far? No, because there are far more serious things at hand, right? We cannot pin the blame on a single volcano, right? Due to this, there are further other reasons. The very first reason that Berkeley Earth told us that in 2023 we have tendencies of El Nino, which we have discussed in Analyst, across the various seasons, so far. So, El Nino is one of the reasons why Earth's atmosphere, or Earth is seeing more and more warmer months. And we can see that due to El Nino, the northern Atlantic Ocean can also become warm. Okay, and we can understand that the cooling agents that we generally find in dust, in sulfur particles, right? So these are not being found in a frequent number as of now, because as of now the dust which we find mostly from the Saharan desert is actually declining, and also the sulfur emissions or aerosols are also declining. Now we have to understand that these are attributed to reasons such as weak Atlantic trade winds and also new shipping restrictions in 2020 that was imposed. And this is the reason, shipping industry is a huge contributor of sulfur or SOx to the atmosphere. Now, if we have new shipping restrictions, since 2020, then we can assume that we have less sulfur, and sulfur and dust are actually the particles on which water droplets coalesce on or say collect on to form precipitation or clouds. So if we have this in less number, right, and also these have the potential to reflect off, right, heat, then if we have this in less number, we can assume that the earth will be getting warmer, right. Then there are also stagnant anticyclones in the European region, which is actually seeing a heat wave condition as of now. Right? Why this is happening? Because you have to understand stagnant, anticyclones are due to stagnant high pressure areas. Anticyclones take place in these areas, and here the air sinks and warms, right? And this does what? This actually melts all the clouds which are, in the vicinity of this particular region, and this will be giving rise to summer conditions, and these summer conditions will be, heating. When there will be less clouds, there will be not enough reflection of the sun rays, and these sun rays will be directly striking the earth's surface, and this will be hitting the ground and the air above, and this will be creating fresh amount of heat waves. So we can see stagnant anticyclones are actually perpetuating the heat wave conditions. Then the current El Nino situation is also making it more exacerbated, right? And in India, if we can understand, the Indian summers actually saw a very late outset of the western disturbances. The western disturbances which actually prevails in India during the winter months actually stayed late into our summers, and this actually prevented the Indian monsoons also. So, and also when we talk of Indian monsoons, the month of August actually was one of the driest months, right, in the few last decades. So we have to understand these global effects, and also there are threats of El Nino in India. So these global impacts above, and also the impacts on Indian weather conditions, these have given rise to heat wave conditions in India, which actually was seen in the months of April, May, June in India. But some experts also say that these El Nino conditions can be counteracted by Indian Ocean dipole, right? So these are the conditions that actually are affecting India. And if we can see the global annual carbon dioxide emissions around the world, if we can see that there are some bigger countries, right? Some big countries such as the whole of Asia, China, India, Africa, and some continents, and even nations like US, European Union. So they are attributing to carbon emissions as of the last few years. But if we see, right, over a period of time, the highest consumers were the Western countries. Okay, so we have to understand the risks here. That while some of the particular years of 2022, 2023, they are becoming more and more hotter. What are the risks? So if we can analyze some of the risk categories across economy, environmental, geopolitical, societal and technology, let us all remember this list, and I want you all to actually have a list also in your notes or wherever you make notes on. So you should be mentioning these risks as 2 years or short-term risks and 10 years as long-term risks. Let me just give you a list, 2-3 risks. For example, the cost of living crisis is cutting across geopolitical and social, right? So we have to understand that the cost of living crisis is short-term risks, right? The long-term risks will be failure to mitigate climate change, right? Will be the failure of climate change adaptation, natural disasters and extreme weather events. So these are the long-term risks. Short-term risks will be like this, long-term risks will be this of the earth getting warmer and warmer. So we definitely need some coping agents, and the very first thing that we must be keeping aware of is reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Next, we must be trying to do more afforestation, because forests will be sequestering the excess carbon dioxide, because they take in carbon dioxide and release more oxygen. So we have to understand we must go on an afforestation drive. Then we must be having sustainable agriculture practices, because agriculture also amounts to much of emissions, particularly methane. So we must be trying to reduce this in order to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. Then we must be trying to develop carbon capture and storage technologies. This will be taking back carbon dioxide or excess CO2 or excess emissions from the atmosphere, and they will be storing in places such as, say, coastal areas, under the earth, underground. So we will be taking excess and storing back in the earth's surface. Then finally we must also try to invest in research and development. For example, we must be trying to understand the fusion energy, nuclear fusion energy, which can be used to generate unlimited amount of energy, right? Then and this is completely green, right? Completely green, no emissions are actually emitted. Then we must be using artificial intelligence to actually automate or to switch to energy efficient appliances. Then we can go about 3D printing, such as reducing the carbon footprint in the construction sector. We can use sustainable manufactured bricks for building houses, bridges, roads, right? Then we must be using biotechnology to actually make more use of biological entities such as algae, bacteria into producing more and more biofuels. So these are all the innovations that the research sector can appreciate, because we have to understand the warning that was given by Melissa Lazenby of University of Sussex. She said that we are moving out of the usual and well-known natural oscillations of climate to uncharted and more extreme territory. So we must be taking heed of such things, right? And let me tell you, these are the quotes which you can use in your mains answers also, right? And also in your essays. Now moving on to the next article, this is regarding the new session, or say the special session which will be arranged by the Government of India with respect to the Indian Parliament. And this is important. Why? In GS2 we have appointment to various constitutional bodies and their functionings. So here we will be discussing about the Election Commission of India and the appointments to it, because the special session of the Parliament is expected to see the introduction of a very special bill which seeks to regulate the appointment, service conditions and the office terms of the Chief Election Commissioner and the other election commissioners. Now before this, let us understand what is the Election Commission of India. Now see, according to Article 324 of our Indian Constitution, the Election Commission of India is entrusted with the superintendence, direction and control of our Indian elections, and these elections will be taking to the office of the various members of the Parliament, the state legislatures, office of the President and Vice President of India. And let me tell you, right, let me remind you rather, that elections are the lifeblood of all democracies. It is only through elections that the public can give voice to their demands and aspirations, and who will be fulfilling their voice of demand and aspirations? It will be their representatives at the Parliament, at the various levels of the government. And here the Election Commission will be fulfilling a role of a watchdog, right? They will be ensuring that the whole process is following a very free, fair and a transparent process. Here it is the Election Commission in India, and also all of the countries, they have their own election commissions irrespective of any geographical location. Now here in India, according to another article of our constitution, that is article 324 subclause 2, the composition of the commission is given here, which will be the core essence of our discussion today. See, the composition will be, there will be one chief election commissioner, plus there will be two other election commissioners, right? The president will be appointing both of them, and how they will be coming to the election commission, because the law minister will be from a pool of candidates giving some candidates for the recommendation of the prime minister, who will be advising the president, right, to appoint one of them as a chief election commissioner or the other election commissioners. Now here there are generally no qualifications mentioned in the Constitution of India as to who they will be, but there are some tenures mentioned, that is 6 years or up to 65 years these members can hold the office of the election commission. They can resign anytime, and the CEC can be impeached, right, in a manner that is similar to a Supreme Court judge. Then the ECs can be removed on the recommendation of the Chief Election Commissioner. But here we have to understand that there is a TN session versus the Union of India 1995 case, which said that the CEC cannot arbitrarily dismiss the other other election commissioners, right? Then we have to understand that the salary, perks, the status of the election commissioners, all of them are equal to a Supreme Court judge. This is why, let me tell you, this is actually given to elevate them above the rank of any bureaucrat or even the highest bureaucrat, that is the cabinet secretary, right? So the election commission members are actually above their rank, and it is equal to the Supreme Court judge. That means their orders, their instructions actually carry almost the same power or exactly the same power as that of an Supreme Court judge. So we have to understand this, and this is according to Election Commission Act of 1991. Now according to Article 324 subclause 5, the CEC removal is actually done by a presidential order, as I have already told, according to a Supreme Court judge removal, that is the impeachment process, correct? So we have to understand that Election Commission is almost given, a high amount of power automatically by the Constitution of India. Now here, there is an interesting article here. The Article 324 subclause 2, it is saying directly from the Constitution, as we can see, that the Election Commission shall consist of the Chief Election Commissioner and such any number of other election commissioners, if any, as a president may time to time fix, and the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner and the other election commissioners shall, subject to the provisions of any law made by the Parliament, right, and thus by the President. So we have to understand that the Parliament has to make a law with respect to an appointment. But so far we have seen that it is a process where the Prime Minister is advising the President for the appointment. So there has been no law so far in India regarding appointments. And that is why in 2015, Anup Barawal actually submitted a PIL to the Supreme Court of India that this particular process, this current process, is kind of unconstitutional because this is not mentioned in the Constitution. So the Parliament must make a law. And for further examination, the Supreme Court in 2018 referred this to a larger bench of our examination of this Article 324. So accordingly, in Anup Barawal versus Union of India 2023, the Supreme Court said that there will be a committee which will be known as High Powered Committee of the Prime Minister, of the Leader of Opposition of the Lok Sabha and the Chief Justice of India. So this committee will be recommending the Election Commission members. So this was actually to fill the vacuum. This was actually to fill the vacuum because by far there has been no law governing the same. So the Supreme Court said that let us decide this. And Supreme Court observed that there is this constitutional vacuum, and also according to debates of Constitutional Assembly, the founding fathers of our Constitution, they said that they did not intend that the executive will be exclusively calling the shots in the matter of appointments to the election commission. So Supreme Court said that maybe the judiciary had some role to play, and that is why this has been done. And this bill which will be introduced is actually trying to overturn that judgment. This is trying to fill the vacuum by the force of law, and the parliament is totally justified in doing so. It is totally justified in doing so because it is mentioned in Article 324 subclause 2 that the parliament may be making some law regarding appointments. And here the other thing that they are doing is repealing the Election Commission Act of 1991, where the salary allowances and the service conditions of the CEC plus other 2 members is now being pegged to the cabinet secretary level or to a bureaucrat. They are brought down from a Supreme Court judge to a bureaucrat. So this is something noteworthy. Then there will be a search committee, right? And this search committee will be preparing the panel of 5 persons, right? And then there will be further a selection committee, which is important because this selection committee will be consisting of the Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, and a cabinet minister, which is appointed or selected by the Prime Minister. So this will be the appointment structure now via search committee and the selection committee. Now there are some issues. Now are we saying right now via this amendment that in election commission, the election commission members are not equivalent to Supreme Court judges right now? Are we saying that? And when we are saying that, the power of orders, direction, superintendence, instruction given by the election commission, can they now no longer carry the power and status of a Supreme Court judge order? Because we are concerning the election of members of parliament, right? We are concerning the indirect selection of our ministers and prime ministers. So initially, as of now, the election commission or election commission members, they have the power to summon the prime minister also on matters of elections. So by this, are we saying something else that the powers are reduced, right? And this will be, can it be said that the removal is also affected because since they are no longer equivalent to Supreme Court judges, so can they be now say that they can be removed in any other process? Then the free fair decision against Prime Minister, the government, which the Election Commission of India can take, can they take any further? So these are the questions. These are the issues as questions. Then election commissions, right? Election commissioners, can they be brought under the ambit of bureaucracy, right? And what will be happening to the authority and independence in this structure? Because we have to understand that there are selection committees, search committees who will be suggesting their names. So will the election commissioners become yes men to the government? Then we have to understand that leader of opposition is automatically outvoted when in that committee there will be prime minister and another cabinet minister. So we have to understand what is the role of the leader of opposition. And finally, the Supreme Court judgment actually told that CGI will be a part of that committee, of the high powered committee. Now CGI is not part of that. So this is an act of overturning that judgment. Now we have to understand there are some practices which are followed in UK, South America and South Africa and the US that India can also take some leaves out of. In the UK, we have the Speaker's Committee on the Electoral Commission, where the UK MPs actually oversee appointments to their election commission. So this is a good way where the Speaker's Committee is there. There are some MPs who are overseeing this. In South Africa, what happened, it is more inclusive. They are having 5 members, one of them have to be judge, others will be on basis of a search committee. That will be consisting one judge from the President Court, then there will be Human Rights Court representative and Commission on Gender Equality representative will also be there, plus a public prosecutor will be also there. So there is ensuring more inclusive way. And finally, the US Federal Election Commission is having 6 election commissioners. Here we have to understand they are actually having politicians in their search committee, but here we have to understand that these 6 election commissioners have a restriction that no more than 3 members can belong to the same political party, that is Republic or Democrat, because we have to understand there will be consensus in the US Federal Election Commission. So we have to understand these are some practices that India can also emulate. And here the way ahead we have to understand in various directions which are given by our father of constitution, that is B.R. Ambedkar. He said that in order that elections may be free in the real sense of the word, that they shall be taken apart out of the hands of the government of the day and conducted by the independent body called the Election Commission of India. So he also focused on an independent body which will be independent in true sense, in real sense, and they will be conducting free and fair elections in also the real sense. So these are the spirit that embody the formation of the Election Commission of India, right? Who will be serving without any fear or favor or pressure or from any executive or any other political party in power, right? So this is actually also indispensable because we have Article 14 in our Indian Constitution which vouches for equality, right? Equality is also essential, and that is what Election Commission needs to have if it is independent. Then we can say that we can also vote another or say go another way of appointing the CEC by making the senior most election commission automatically the CEC, right? And finally we must understand that T.N. Seshan, who was a former election commission and who is a very honest and integral bureaucrat, he in his case that is the CEC versus Union of India, he said that there can be no two opinions that free and fair elections to our legislative bodies alone would guarantee the growth of a healthy democracy in the country. So we must try to respect the sanctity of our election commission, right? And especially this is a constitutional body and this needs to be free and fair. So we have to understand there needs to be more deliberations, more discussions in the session to come. The next article will be a brief case study regarding a particular government scheme such as known as the Jal Jeevan Mission, which is a behavioral change mission and also to supply pipe drinking water to most of the rural households. So this is a way of how we can see that some of the most important natural resource, that is our water, is actually not managed properly. So in GS1 we have this topic of distribution of key natural resources, and we shall try to understand how this is a very engaging case study that you can write in your mains answers. So what happened in Hindu today, it appeared that in Mahoba district, Uttar Pradesh, which has seen a dramatic spike in official tap water connections. So officially they have high amount of tap water collection up to the level of 98%. Many residents say that they only have pipes, not taps. So pipes have been done but taps have not been inserted as of now, and there is no actual supply of water flowing through them. So this brings us to the question that we have some groundwater crisis in India, right? Now let us understand where is the earth's water in its actual form. We have to understand most of these are locked away in our oceans. Very few, almost 2.5 is fresh water, and out of this fresh water, glaciers and ice caps lock around 70% of it, right? And the rest of them are actually available as groundwater. And also of this groundwater, we have to understand most of them are locked away in ground ice or permafrost. These are actually found in regions of Serbia. And out of this also, most of them are actually locked away in ground ice and permafrost, right? So we can understand very few water is actually present, right? Very few actually, very low amount of good quality water is actually present for human consumption. And groundwater is the water that seeps through rocks and soils and stored below the ground. And this is very important for the drinking water needs and also for the daily needs of human individuals. But there are groundwater crises in India, particularly from unregulated extraction, or there is too much of extraction over its actually capacity of groundwater. For example, groundwater is actually recharged through natural ways, right, such as the rainfall, right? If we say we receive 100 rainfall and we are extracting 200 units of water, then this is over extraction. This will be putting stress. Then we have to understand India, the largest groundwater is actually used in irrigation, in agriculture. So this is also a very serious threat. Then there is also poor water of groundwater management in India. Because we have to understand, we are extracting too much, we are using too much in irrigation. So there is poor water. And also there are various pollutants which are also found, such as even uranium are actually found, arsenic are found in most of the Indian cities. So there is pollution. Due to climate change, there are low rainfalls, and this is impacting the groundwater stock of our country. And also in 2021, the CAG, the Contemporary Auditor General of India, they said that the groundwater extraction increased from 58 to 63% between only these 13 years. And this is a very serious thing, because over extraction at the current rate can threaten 80% of our drinking water resources. So that is the background to this, and that is why the government of India has undertaken various initiatives such as this Jal Jeevan Mission. And here we have to understand that this particular government scheme is trying to supply tap water connections to all rural households by 2024. And Madhoba is one of those districts in Uttar Pradesh which has said that they have done 98% of the scheme, or say 98% of the houses are actually connected via pipes and taps. But we have to understand the reality is not that, because most of the houses just have pipes. They do not have even taps connected. And if they have taps connected, no water is actually flowing through them. Right? Also, the challenges we have to understand can be in other ways also. That there is no continuous and reliable supply of water. Right? There are some quality issues also. Then pipe water flows for only a few hours in the morning. So these are also the thing, that if we are saying that we are supplying water services, you have to understand that is available 24/7. Right? So these are some lapses by the district government. Then there are also reports of pipes and tap theft that is happening within the district. So there is also thievery which is taking place in this scheme by various antisocial elements. Then there are some infrastructural challenges such as non-availability of good roads, non-availability of enough, skilled personnel, right? So these are also the infrastructural challenges which are facing them. And also some of the districts are having ambitious deadlines which are often unrealistic also. So let us have all these points as case studies, and let us mention these case studies directly in our mains answers to get more points and more marks. Now, the initiatives taken by the government are the Atal Bhujal Yojana, which is a kind of a behavioral change awareness scheme among the people. Then we have National Project on Aquifer Management, which has been launched with a goal of participatory groundwater management. This will be trying to locate the aquifers, right, which are located below our ground, and we will be trying to mapping them, right, so we can find good sources of groundwater. Then we have this Jal Jeevan Mission, which will be providing safe drinking water to all rural households by 2024. But we have to understand the implementation is not very smooth. Then there is India Groundwater Resource Estimation System, which is using special softwares and machine learning algorithms to actually predict the water resources, the water stock in India. And finally, we have the Jal Shakti Abhiyan, which is promoting that famous Catch the Rain campaign, which is eventually, promoted or say inculcated to promote awareness between the people. So these are the initiatives. And finally, the concluding thoughts on this topic will be that the Mihir Shah committee actually said that we can do what? We can combine the two, Central Water Commission and Central Groundwater Board, into a single National Water Commission. So this will be converging the efforts of the two bodies, right? Because essentially we are talking about groundwater. So we cannot have two different bodies. So we have to coordinate between them. Then we must be having water sensitive urban design and planning, because in urban areas, due to rain, due to non-rainwater harvesting, most of the water is actually lost. So actually China even came up with sponge cities. That means whatever rainfall that the cities get, they will be drawn into underwater drainage systems, finally into a pooling mechanism where the city can later use them for water and any other purposes, drinking water or any other purposes. Then we have to understand that we have to promote more blue-green infrastructure. Here blue means promoting good wetlands, preserving rivers, ponds, lakes, and green means afforestation, right? So we have to understand that water bodies and forests or trees, they have a very good connection, right? Apart from giving good quality of water, they also lead to prevention of natural disasters such as floods. So we have to understand that these are the infrastructure approach that cities can do, and even many cities actually are doing this as riverfront development. Then public awareness and participation is also needed, right? And finally, we have to understand that in India, the agriculture is the biggest groundwater consumer. So there are efforts to actually promote irrigation measures, such as using micro irrigation, using artificial intelligence irrigation, using drone for irrigation. That is why the farmers also need costs incentive from the government. And some of the important facts that you can see here, you can also find these in the handout, and also you can pause the video and see why groundwater is very important for irrigation. But on the other hand, irrigation also puts a very high stress on the groundwater in India. If I can say that in India, right, warming climate change will lead to more demand of irrigation waters in India. So these are some of the components that we have to understand properly. Now the next article is about the PM Cares Fund, and there are some questions that the Supreme Court is asking about the government regarding where orphan students or orphan children can be covered under this PM Cares Fund. Right. Now this PM Care Fund is a very special fund which was actually announced by our Prime Minister during the COVID. Now we have to understand this, the government has set up this Citizens Assistance Fund, right, during the COVID crisis, and the Prime Minister is the chairman of the fund. Now what are the objectives? The objective is that in any public health emergencies, right, or any man-made or natural disaster or any other calamity, this fund, the monies in this fund will be spent for their alleviation of the reliefs of the people. Then they will be also leading to creation of upgradation of healthcare or pharmaceutical facilities that will be essential for preventing any disaster in the very first place, right? Then this will be also rendering financial assistance to the people who are affected by it, right? Here the fund is actually not receiving any budgetary support, and here the people can make micro donations, and during the pandemic from 2020 to present, people have contributed lakhs and lakhs of crores to this fund. And this fund has been used for many useful purposes, such as building good healthcare facilities, helping the vaccination drives in our country, and also giving assistance to some vulnerable sections such as women and children who are affected by the pandemic. And this is generally to strengthen the disaster management strategies. The contribution to the PM Cares Fund is actually exempted or from the income tax, and they will be also qualifying for corporate social responsibility expenditures, so that companies can also try to donate more, right? And they are also exempted from the Foreign Contributions Regulatory Act, and here that is why the donations and contributions are actually also enabled from the foreign countries, right? And also the Supreme Court recently said that there can be no audit by the CAG on this fund, right? Now we have to understand that the PM Cares Fund on children, they have some important schemes. First is that the government will be standing with the children that have lost their parents during the COVID crisis, and such children will be getting a monthly stipend once they turn 18 and a fund of 10 lakh rupees when they turn 23. So they are giving assistance to orphan children in kind of this manner. Free education to the insured children will be given. Children will be also assisted to get an education loan for higher studies, and PM Cares will pay interest on the loans. And the children will get free health insurance of 5 lakh rupees under Ayushman Bharat till 18 years of age, and that premium will also be paid by the PM Cares Fund. And that is why the Supreme Court is actually hearing that why not orphans who are also affected or not affected by the COVID crisis why they shall not get this benefit. So actually this matter is in the court right now. So let us see what the outcomes are. Now coming to the next articles, we have to understand this is about the recent export data which has been released by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Here it is important. Why? Because we have economy and social development in our prelim syllabus, and in this article we shall be not going into much data or say numbers and figures. Let us understand the trends. Here the Indian foreign trade actually hit a fresh straw in August, with goods exports shrinking for the 7th month, right? Services exports estimated also to have dropped for the very first time in well over a year, right? So let us see what happened. See, exports over 2021 to 2022, say over the last 2 years, have been on a decreasing trend. And this is not a very good sign for the GDP of a country, because we know that the GDP is measured by the consumption, by investment, plus government expenditure, plus net exports, which is X minus M, that is exports minus imports. So if this component declines, the overall GDP will also be declining. So let us understand why this is happening. See, the good exports is declining for the 7th month. Service exports are also decreasing by around 0.4%. There is trade deficit which is a 10-month high, right? So these are the reasons why this is happening. And also we can understand that the lower oil prices, or say crude oil prices, are there actually in the world right now, but this is not improving our deficit as of now. Okay, so this is the thing. But there is optimism for the future, as commodities prices such as the crude oil are expected to be remaining low for a period of time, right? And that is why we must say that because crude oil is one of the highest imported objects in our trade basket, so any decrease in price can be matched, right? Then we have to understand the global trade outlook given by the World Trade Organization projects a growth of around 2.4% in 2024. And due to declining trade data, there have been very exporters, various stakeholders who are asking for support by the government. They are saying that we need more credit for small enterprises who are exporting goods and services. Then marketing support is also needed to promote Indian goods. For example, say we have to give more marketing supports to the GI tag goods such as basmati rice. Then we must try to exempt GST levies, or say imposition of GST tax on freight for exports. Exports are already zero rated by GST, but the freight, the transportation, we have also tried to do that. Then finally we must try to extend the emergency credit guarantee to help exporters during these challenging times. That means the government must be trying to give them emergency line guarantee. Now after this, let us see some of the things that are asked usually in the prelims examination. See, if you can see here, these are the basket of our exports as of 2020 to 2023, and even 2024 it is going to stay the same, where we have mineral fuels and oils, pearls, then we have electrical machinery, we have machinery, mechanical and other components, which we can see. These are the baskets, and you should remembering them from top to bottom, right? So that in prelims, if they ask you to arrange these things in an ascending or descending order based on their value, so you can arrange them. And also we can see the top trading partners of India, as we can see here, right, are China, are US, are Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iraq, Switzerland, Singapore, Hong Kong, right? So these are the top 8 to 10 trading partners of India globally. So that was all for today. I hope you benefited from the session today. Thank you all for attending, and all the best.